Hi, Melissa. It's Christy. Nice to kind of officially meet you. I am so excited. Thank you for letting me share your year ahead spread with you. What I'm going to do is I've already done the shuffling, and while I was shuffling, I was just kind of focusing on your name and your face and asking what messages I should share with you. So, here in just a second, I'm going to draw the cards. I'm going to pull a card, one for each month of 2018, along with an overall theme card, so that, and then I'll kind of explain how that ties everything together if it does, and give you a general and give you a reading for each month of the year. What I tell people at the beginning of my readings is to take what resonates with you, leave behind what doesn't. And that's kind of a good principle to keep in mind for anything that is spiritual in nature or a little bit more abstract. Like faith-based things, all of that is to pay attention to what resonates with you, leave behind what doesn't. Because I don't believe in a one-size-fits-all method. And I think that I'm also human. I'm a human messenger. I am not divine. I am hoping to bring some things through for you that are going to help and going to serve you well. But I'm still human, and so some things that you hear may fall flat, and that could be, my ego getting carried away, or wanting to explain too much, or it may be resonating for me, but not it's not an exact science, and it's really important to tune in. When I say what resonates with you, it's like it strikes a chord, it strikes a nerve, is what we tend to say. It's got that, like when you strike like a guitar string, like it vibrates, and that's what makes the sound. It's like ding. So it could be that it makes you uncomfortable. It could be that it makes you happy. It may make you cry. It may make you hopeful. There are a variety of things that you can feel, but the point is that you do feel something, okay? Usually if it does not resonate, it falls flat. You're just kind of left there going, I don't know, what does that mean? So, not ringing any bells. And generally you tend to forget about it. So if it resonates, even if you don't think it's resonating, if you think about it later, like, oh, she said that thing, then it's probably important to you somehow. So, and then also with this year ahead spread, it can be really helpful to keep a journal handy. So you can always pause this video and go grab one, or do it on your next go round. But to keep a journal, write down the card and then write down anything that strikes you, anything that resonates with you, and then leave a little bit of or leave space, however much space you want, to then write down what actually happens during that year. So when I did this last year, I had a smallish journal, and I would use one side of the page for the reading, and then I would use the flip side for what actually happened. So it was kind of fun I didn't, honestly, I will say I did not keep up with it throughout the year, but I think it can be a really good practice for reflection. So, all right, without further ado, I'm going to start drawing your cards here. May, April, May, June, July, August, okay, September, October, yeah. Okay. All right, so you have some really interesting some really interesting cards going on here. I'm going to start with your theme card, which is the Knight of Cauldrons. And this was actually in reverse, which means it was upside down. So I had an interesting just situation. The reason I was quiet there for a minute is because I was wrestling with what to do. When we have a card that is drawn upside down, we call that in reverse. There's different reading that comes along with that. I had a lot of cards in reverse for you that I felt like I needed to read normally. So I was flipping all those back up, right side up. But then this guy came out in reverse, and I felt like I was supposed to read it in reverse. So just what happens sometimes. So anyway, this is the Knight of Cauldrons regularly. You can see he is very armored, very guarded. The cauldrons is associated with emotion. So there's a sense of him being very guarded and even detached from his emotions. Even as he handles the cauldron in his hand, he's got these like really sharp, really thick armored gloves on. So he's holding the emotion, but he's also very detached and protected from the emotion. So this year you might find a challenge of connecting with your emotions on a real level. And so the journal is going to be really helpful for that. Actually, hold on. This is in reverse. So this actually, so reverse is generally the opposite of the normal reading. Okay. So I'm actually getting the sense that you're going to have boundaries, have trouble setting boundaries with emotion. So the opposite of attached or detached is going to be, you're going to be struggling with complete attachment to your emotions. So being able to balance logic with emotions is going to be really important this year. Being able to check in with kind of the head versus heart. And you may struggle with leading with the heart too much and to an extreme. So just interjecting some logic in there, allowing the head to have a say, will help balance you out and will help you, will help with any over attachment to the emotions that you've got going on. All right, so let's start with January. Got the Eight of Pentacles. So very industrious month, very creative. Pentacles are, you kind of think about like working with your hands, like like old trades used to be, like blacksmithing, farming. People, for some reason, I'm thinking about people who like built wheels for wagons, like working with the elements, working with your hands. It's this very earthy experience, and very so it's not necessarily creative from the sense of like being real fluffy and woo-woo. It is very like creation from the sense of practical creation. So being really industrious in that. However that's going to look for you. February is Five of Cauldrons, and again, cauldrons having to do with emotion. You can see this person is very detached from their emotions. They're not aware either of the cups spilling in front of them or of the child in the back that looks like it's going to dump its cauldron on top of his head. And I think there's a sense of frustration, whether it's the frustration that's keeping him distracted or he's inevitably frustrated because he's disconnected. And I think it's actually a two-way street. I think that he's disconnected, and so then there's this building frustration because there's not an expression of the emotion, or at least not a healthy perspective on the emotion, and that's building frustration. But then the more detached, I guess maybe detached is not the word. I think it's more, the more the perspective is distorted or warped about the emotional pieces, then the more the frustration builds. So in February, just really being aware, tuning into your emotions. And again, because your theme is about, the theme of your year is about exploring the balance between emotion and thought, and exploring boundaries around those things. This, I think, is just kind of one of those months where you especially need to tune in to your emotions and understand how they're affecting you and what is true about them and what is exaggerated about them. March is the Four of Swords. And so some boundaries are going into place here, although they may be sharp, they may be rigid. Swords have to do with words, and so you're going to have some words in place, or at least some communication that is allowing you to be surrounded and protected. It may also be caging you in, so just be aware of that. You see she's in the center of this like courtyard, but there's no like real door or escape except these windows. So just notice where your communication style maybe is what's keeping you trapped in a situation or relationship. April is the Queen of Cauldrons. So as with anything, there is a pendulum swing, right? So, you can go from like being completely out of control with your emotions and then being completely in control. The Queen is a very regal character. She is very in control. Everything about her life is in place, and she's got her emotions carefully resting in the center of her hand. Don't mistake this for the goal. Okay, this is not necessarily the end goal. This is just one pendulum swing as you're learning to balance your emotions. Okay. The Wheel of Fortune is May. And this is one of our major arcana cards. You're going to have several coming up here, so some really powerful messages coming through with these. Major arcana cards there's the major and then the minor. Major usually have this description along with a Roman numeral at the bottom because they are all ordered. And major versus minor. Major tends to be a much more intense message, an enduring message, a deeper something that's addressing a deeper issue. Whereas minor arcana cards can be a bit more temporary. They may last 1 or 2 days and then moving on to the next. They may just be like, this is what's happening in the moment, and doesn't last very long. So, whereas major arcana cards can be like, there's a lot of time with the tarot is not my strong suit. So but it's just more pervading, I guess. Pervasive is the word. So Wheel of Fortune, there's just kind of the sense that you're taking your fate into your own hands. All right. You're going to have dueling motives or parties that have their own intentions. And but it's really it's going to be about you taking charge and coming to understand where your place is in the scheme of things, how you control the outcomes, whether it's manifesting intentions or being able to decide that you're going to change things and acknowledging that you have the power to do that. So that is May. June is the Four of Rods. So we've got a really good balance of things happening here. The masculine, the feminine, the child there, even the dog is present. Everyone is jovial. Everyone's handling things well. Rods are associated with beliefs, doubts, ideas, opinions. And it seems like in this, everyone is handling those quite well. They're able to interact with each other. They're able to get along, a sense of harmony. This could be a month where you feel the kind of pendulum swing between the middle before it heads back in the other direction. So you do kind of sense that shifting. And this is maybe a little bit more of a positive part of that change. Because then the pendulum's going to swing right back for July. We're going to go back. We're going to go to the Eight of Cauldrons. And you see the guy here clutching his cauldrons, Many of them are empty, where in a lot of the pictures they actually have liquid in them. So feeling bankrupt, depleted, dried out emotionally, and then um, maybe even fearful. So you're clinging to those things, clutching them to your chest. Again, just another part of the pendulum swing. Like this is just, so it's that really all you can do is ride the wave at this point and wait for things to swing back to, wait for them to settle into a state of balance. You're not there yet, but you're getting there. July, August is Ten of Swords. And yeah, this is a harder one. Our character here has actually been pierced by one of the swords. Swords are all around. Swords, again, words and communication. This may be a month where you feel really defeated by lack of communication or overabundance of communication, where people are just kind of verbally vomiting all of their internal processes out to you, and taking that personally. So just be aware that situation could come up. When you feel defeated, understand that's why. It's because they have shared too much of their situation with you. I had this recently where I was in a living situation. It's just what made me think of it. And instead of just saying, hey, I really, this isn't what I expected, I would like for you to find another place to live, it became this verbal vomit of things that attacked my choices, attacked my dreams, so it started to attack things about me, because it was hard for her to be honest, and it was hard for her to acknowledge her own emotions. So just know that people have a hard time acknowledging how they feel, and they may take that out on you verbally, or in a letter or email, or even a text message, because that's where we go these days. Be able to when you notice that you feel this way, step back. Give yourself some space and really evaluate, right? Because sometimes there can be truth in those criticisms, but there can also be a lot of untruth. And so it's important for us not to adopt things or not to take on things as if they are truth. This is part of our figuring out who we are and who we are not. September is the Two of Rods. So you're navigating this a little bit better this month. You can tell that you have definitely picked up the lessons from last month, paying attention. It's still a bit of a balancing act, but it is one that you are able to do, one that you're able to accomplish. And I think balance is really what's going to be coming up for you this month. Keep your eyes open. The little character here has his eyes closed. This is definitely an eyes open kind of month. You want to be able to see where you're stepping. You want to be able to navigate ahead for yourself. And I think that's coming into play because you have 3 really powerful cards to finish out the year. So the last quarter of the year, maybe that means something to you. Maybe I don't know if you measure your year in quarters, maybe with work or your own personal finances, school, whatever it is. But the last quarter is going to be really intensely powerful. Really powerful. And a pretty interesting balance of the masculine and feminine too, which I think is fascinating. So we are all made up of masculine and feminine characteristics and energies. We have a tendency to be more prevalent with one or the other, but they're never completely gone, no matter what. Just because we are women does not mean we are only feminine in nature. We have masculine traits as well. And so sometimes our feminine is stronger than our masculine, and sometimes masculine is stronger than feminine, and that can shift over time or with the season or the struggle that we're facing. This next stretch, the last quarter of the month for you, is going to be a really good balance of the two. We start that out with September, and you see we've got this really strong, vulnerable woman. She's got her head held high, chest puffed out. She's riding a lion, for goodness sakes. Like, she's the epitome of strength. and she's got these snakes coiled on. I mean, it's just really interesting, like her staff, but also the infinity sign above her head. And so, what I encourage you to do is tap into that infinite strength that is within you, that is capable of commanding these forces, these really fierce, intense forces, and live into that. This may be a month where you have to channel the energy of this warrior priest, warrior goddess person, and really step up and stand strong. I don't think it's going to come just automatically. I think it's going to be a choice that you make, because that is really what you're learning through this year with the emotions and everything, is learning to make choices for yourself. And so choosing to channel that strength and choosing to channel that power, I think is going to serve you really well. This is an invitation to do that. November, you're going to get a powerful guide to help you. You can see the masculine there holding the feminine. In the background up here, you've got these interesting characters. So, and then here's the angel guide. So it's a sense that there is a spiritual being that you're going to connect to. You may, if you've never done this before, you may do a spirit guide meditation. I know that can sound really fluffy and woo-woo and maybe a little off the deep end, but it's fascinating. There is an idea that we are guided. We have our own angels. We have our own spirit guides. And they help us move and navigate through our lives. I will send you a spirit guide meditation that I have used that I really like. Essentially, it's a lot of imagery. It's very imagery driven. You kind of go on this journey until you get to this place, and then you meet your spirit guides, and you ask. I like to ask mine what their names are. Or I have in the time, but ask them what their names are and what they'd like to tell me. And it's really fascinating. Like, I've met some that were like parents to me, that spoke to me in a loving, kind, gentle way. I have like a spirit wolf that guides me around. Like, it's fun. I think it's interesting. It's, again, another place where you take what resonates with you and you leave behind what doesn't, but can be a really powerful way for, especially if you're imagery driven like I am, for the divine, however that looks for you, to connect with you and to speak to you personally. So guidance is just kind of the overwhelming theme for November. Guidance, guidance, guidance. I think spiritual in nature, but that also may come in the form of a physical person or a physical thing in your life. So just open your eyes, pay attention. Pay attention to what's guiding you. Especially pay attention to signs. If you repeatedly see a feather on the ground, or you repeatedly notice, like, I don't know, a specific image that keeps popping up, like, oh, it's the third time this week someone's mentioned, going back to nursing school. Like, I had a friend who recently was like contemplating going back to nursing school, and all of a sudden she just had, a dozen people mention nursing. I've been either they've been in the nursing program, or they just told her kind of out of the blue she'd be a really good nurse. That kind of thing. So pay attention to that. Your guidance is going to come in the form of many, many things, but it's going to be a really intense month for guidance. And then December, the Magician, one of my favorite cards. This kooky guy with wearing an animal hide and antlers, and you've got a unicorn in the background with Stonehenge and lightning and a wolf coming out of flames. He's got runes in front of him, so he's a fortune teller, or not fortune teller, but able to read the future. What I love about the Magician is that it's there is a sense with the Magician that he or she has everything they need to move forward. They're able to look into the past, look into the future. They've got powerful tools in their hands, powerful players around them. December is just going to be it's going to be a month where you realize how capable you are. Like, you are so powerful. You are empowered. You're going to recognize the tools that you have around you. At least that's the invitation that the Magician presents. Recognize that you are completely equipped and you have everything you need within you to navigate your life. Not only navigate, but to create your future. to create a future that you want and that you've been wanting. With the emotional piece of it kind of circling through all of this, I have a feeling the culmination of putting boundaries in place, being able to lead with both your head and your heart, is going to allow you to step into the magician role. So it's all playing into one another, and it's all for your evolution. Everything that is showing up here is for your evolution. So I think that's all that I have. If you have any questions or things that come up you'd like a little clarity on, feel free to ask. I usually give a disclaimer that I am just the messenger, so I may or may not be able to give you insight into that. And so don't then be surprised if I say, I'm not really getting anything. I recommend taking this to your prayer meditation time and asking your guides, asking your angels, asking God, asking Jesus, whoever it is that is personal to you, that resonates with you, and see if they can bring you clarity and if they can help move you forward. So have a wonderful new year. Again, thank you so much for letting me share this